So like most kids, there were a few people that I wanted to be like growing up. So for instance, I was absolutely convinced that I was Spider-Man, or at least I was meant to become Spider-Man. So sometimes I would try it out to see if it had happened yet, and I would lay in bed and try and catch some objects, but there would never be any web coming out. So I figured my time just hadn't come yet. But, and I know I'm not alone in this, whenever I would see a spider, there was a period of time I would just look at it and think, this is it. This is the spider that's going to turn me. But the person, or the fictional character, but in my world she was as real as one could be, who I looked up to the most was Hermione Granger. No, she was the smart girl, the first one to turn in all of her school assignments, and the first one to raise her hand in class, and the one to come up with clever ideas and help her friends out. And she had a bit of sass and wittiness to her, and I thought that she was the coolest, and I mean, I still do.
You're saying it wrong. It's Leviosa, not Leviosa.
But so, what does that even mean? You know, what does it mean when we say that someone is our role model? Is it just someone that we admire, someone that we think is cool from afar? Is it someone we want to be like? Well, as a kid, I guess it was all of the above. You know, in the case of Hermione, I liked her hair and I wanted her cool outfits, and I too wanted to be the first one to walk up to my teacher and hand in the assignments and ace it. And don't even get me started on the British accent. I still love a good British accent, and actually, you know, when I read things out loud to myself, I often tend to do it in my attempt at a British accent. And I know we have a lot of Brits here on this channel, so feel free to rate how you think this is going for me. But so the way that having her as a role model manifested itself to me was that, for example, I would picture her when studying, or when I was too shy or afraid to raise my hand in class or to hold a presentation, and it gave me courage. Now, as I've gotten older, I've acquired more role models, and before we get into some of them, I do want to mention that my idea of what a role model is has changed over the years. So years ago, when the topic of role models would come up, I would consider it a pretty loaded question, you know, like the answer to that question would reveal a lot about a person. Like, have you ever been asked that question at a job interview, for example? And, you know, I have. And you're just sitting there thinking like, okay, who is the most impressive person that I can think of in this field? Warren Buffett. I don't know. Today, however, I don't take it as seriously, and that's not at all to say that the people that I view as role models aren't impressive, but rather just to relax this idea that a role model needs to be this perfect person who always says the right thing and does the right thing and who stands for all the best things at all times. I just think it's important to step back from that, maybe especially in times like this where it seems like the bar that we set for some people is so high that it's absolutely ridiculous, in my opinion. It's like we're no longer expecting humans to be humans with all of their flaws and misjudgments and mistakes. I personally don't pick someone as a role model because they're perfect, you know, then I would just go on Sims and create my own. I pick them because there is something about them that I appreciate, you know, something that I would like to understand and learn more about, someone who has one or more qualities that I would like to emulate, an influence that I'm welcoming into my life. And so I picked them with a bit of playfulness and openness in mind, but while also keeping my reasons for my decisions clear. You know, I do want to know why I believe looking up to this person is important to me and what exactly it is about them that I admire, and how I think incorporating that or some of that into my life will make it better somehow. All right, let's introduce some of my role models, and as we go through them, I'm going to give some examples of how I actually use them. So we already covered Hermione Granger a bit, and some examples on how I would use her would be that sometimes when I sit down to write or to read, I like to imagine that Hermione Granger is sitting at the library at Hogwarts energy. Sometimes I will take it a step further, like if I'm working on something where I start to feel understimulated or bored, I will imagine that I am working on something more exciting, like ancient runes, and it makes it more fun. And if you haven't read or seen Harry Potter, this will make no sense to you. Another example would be, let's say that I find myself procrastinating. I may think to myself, would Hermione Granger procrastinate on this assignment? No, Ron, she wouldn't. And look, I know this may sound silly or ridiculous to some of you, which is fine by me, and you want to know why? Well, because the next role model that I would like to talk about is Mr. Bean. He is innovative, a problem solver, even though his solutions are bizarre at times, which is part of the comedy. But at least he puts in the effort. He's not a quitter, and I appreciate that. However, the reason that I would consider him a role model is because, to me, he is the epitome of creating joy, even in the smallest, most mundane moments in life. Like the episode where he sent himself Christmas cards, and, when he received them, he was just reacting in such pure excitement, and I love that. He takes on everyday tasks and events such as going to the park or going swimming, and he makes it unnecessarily difficult, but fun. And he turns it into an adventure, and he enjoys his own company, and he enjoys cheering others up with his silliness too, like the time that he was on an airplane and this kid got sick and Mr. Bean started making funny faces to try and cheer him up and make him laugh and to get on other thoughts. So as for how I use him, Mr. Bean just reminds me that it's okay to be absolutely silly at times and to be unapologetically yourself and to lead with curiosity. And he reminds me to enjoy the small things, to live in the moment, and to take ownership of my own happiness. Now, does that mean that I automatically start to enjoy myself more every single time? No. But sometimes, and sometimes is better than no times. By the way, did you know that the whole Mr. Bean TV series was only 15 episodes? I learned that the other day and it just blew my mind. If you watched Mr. Bean growing up, please tell me I'm not the only one who could have sworn it went on for at least 4 to 5 seasons. Jordan Peterson. I very much agree with his teachings on the importance of taking personal responsibility and on getting yourself in order. It's like when I feel like I am slipping, when I feel like I need to get my shit together, it's kind of like he's always watching me and I better not disappoint. I think me using him as a role model is happening almost subconsciously at this point, given that I've dived pretty deep into his teachings and his work. It has sort of helped shape my thinking and my actions in some ways. So to give a practical example, if I am at a low of some sort, I may be feeling unmotivated, let's say. I may think of something that Jordan has said or written, or I may put on one of his lectures to remind myself of whatever it is that I need to be reminded of in that moment. And I may also ask myself questions like, would he pity himself in this situation the way that I am right now? Or would he stay in bed all day? Or how would he handle this? Kate Middleton. Out of all the people on this list, Kate is probably the one that I know the least about, but I do know that I like her poise, her elegance, her style, and the way that she carries herself. And I definitely appreciate her philanthropic work, especially that it revolves around children's organizations, which is something that I myself care very much about. To me, she just screams quiet elegance. Like, I love these photos of her where she's just laughing. You know, it's pure, it's genuine, and a lot of people would not want to get photographed just laughing hysterically like that, but there she is, and she looks absolutely lovely and graceful and confident, and those are all qualities that I admire. So I may think of her for a variety of things, you know, everything from buying new clothes to dealing with conflict. If I find myself in an unpleasant situation, I may think, how would Kate handle this? Now, I obviously have no idea how she handles unpleasant situations in her life, but I would like to think that she handles them with class and with dignity. All right, thank you so much for showing up to this conversation today. I do want to know what you think. Do you believe that role models are necessary? Do you have any? And if so, who are they? How do you use them? How do you believe that they have helped you or benefited your life? Let's chat about that in the comment section. And as always, I will see you there. About a person. Fred, sluta. Snälla sluta nu. Oh my god.